Well, we're talking about flying, particularly on WestJet. Now, if you're someone who likes to recline your seat while you fly, you may have to pony up a little bit more cash to do it on a WestJet flight. The Canadian airline has announced it is reconfiguring its planes to remove the option for many economy passengers. Instead, the airline will add a premium cabin section to some economy-only planes. Regular economy seats will have a, quote, fixed recline design, unquote, which means you won't be able to put your seat back fully unless you upgrade to a better seat. WestJet says the new design saves space and offers affordable options to those who want just the basics. So today here on Radio Noon, we are asking you, what do you think? Would you pay a little extra for luxuries on your next plane ride? Or are you someone who's perfectly fine with just the basics? What kind of things would you pay extra for on a flight? Get your calls in early or text as well. Here are the numbers: 204-7800-893, 204-7800-893 if you'd like to call us. Toll free, out of town, 1-800-268-5483. And of course, you can text us at 204-588-7355, 204-588-7355. My next guest is an aviation expert. John Gradek is a lecturer in supply networks and aviation management at McGill University and joins me now via Zoom. Good afternoon. Welcome to the show, John.
My pleasure to be here with you.
First of all, what do you think of WestJet's latest decision here announcing that they're looking to possibly charge you a little bit more to get that fully reclining seat?
Well, I think they're trying to look at somehow, some way, increasing their revenue on their flights. They're trying to look at the real estate that they have on board the airplane and how do you maximize the use of that real estate and generate the most cash possible. So what they're doing essentially is taking away from the regular economy services and the flexibility you have to have a seat recline on all of your economy seats and saying, well, that now is going to be a premium charge to you on the airplane. And it's going to cost you more. I have no idea how much yet, but we're going to wait and see. Probably be about, 10 or 20 or $30 more. But that's something that you already have today. You have that seat recline for the price you're paying. So my question to WestJet, are you going to lower the price of those seats in the rear of the economy section that no longer recline? Or are you going to keep the price the same for those and then charge those who want to recline a higher fare? So there's a lot of questions being asked about this strategy. It seems that it's a strategy that has worked reasonably well for European low-cost carriers like EasyJet and Ryanair. Is Canada ready for that? I'm not sure.
And I just want to mention that too to our listeners is that WestJet hasn't mentioned yet how much this is going to cost or what the pricing system is going to be here. They just announced that they are talking about reconfiguring their planes there. So, John, you said some European ultra low carriers are already doing something like this. So this sounds like this is a completely new concept here on Canadian Airlines.
It is. It's something very new. I think that there were a couple of attempts made 10 or 15 years ago by some of the carriers who no longer are flying in Canada to introduce this concept. I think that Canadian Airlines, if those remember Canadian Airlines, did try this on a couple of their older airplanes. And of course, Canadian Airlines is no longer around. But, it's a question of trying to figure out, what is it that they can charge passengers for the convenience of various things that have traditionally been included in the base fare. So we've all remember meals, right?
Oh, yes.
What an airline meal looks like. Remember, we had choices of beverages. We could carry bags on an airplane. And, as long as they fit through that little sizing bag, they would be allowed on board the airplane. Well, those things are long gone. For any of those features, you now pay. So they've been nickel and diming, in my words, chipping away at the services and the creatures of comfort that we have come to expect of a basic economy fare, and redefining it under a new set of standards, which, as far as they're concerned, is is their ability to offer the lowest level of service and convenience to those passengers wanting to pay the lowest fare. And I don't know how many of your listeners basically have taken a 3-hour flight from Winnipeg to Vancouver, Winnipeg to Victoria, and not had the seat recline. It's not a very comfortable, situation if you're flying for more than an hour and a half or 2 hours. You'd at least want to be able to stretch your legs and to kind of get your back in motion for a bit without having to walk around the cabin. But I think that this is an attempt by WestJet to kind of further differentiate the airplane and go for some cash.
We are speaking with John Gradek here, a lecturer in supply networks and aviation management at McGill University. It is 12:42 here on Radio Noon, and we're asking you, what do you think? WestJet has announced that they are reconfiguring their airplanes to create a different kind of seating system. You may have to pay a little bit more for that fully reclining seat. What do you think? Are you someone who'd pay extra for some of those luxuries, or are you just perfectly fine with the basics? Give us a call. Share your thoughts. 204-780-0893. Toll free 1-800-268-5483 or text us at 204-588-7355. And we now have a caller who joins us on the line. Hi there, Jody.
Hi.
Hi, Jody. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I don't agree with this at all. I mean, being able to recline is kind of a basic comfort, especially on long flights. I could see if they were doing it, if they had like the Toronto-Montreal or the Calgary-Edmonton, just very short, 45-minute to an hour commuter flight. Sure, I can see that. But if you're flying overseas and you're trying to increase your market there, that's I just think it's ridiculous. Then it leads me to the question of, what are the shareholders demanding? Are they not making enough?
That's a good question. I want to ask you too, Jody. So are you someone who you would pay or you wouldn't pay to get that little bit more of comfort on your flight?
I think it's just ridiculous that it's even a conversation that we have to have.
Okay.
So I do not a huge amount of flying, but I do fly at least once a year. Sometimes I've been lucky enough to go twice a year, but no, I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
Thank you so much for calling in and sharing your thoughts there, Jody. We're talking about WestJet making a decision to charge you possibly a little bit more for that reclining seat. Give us a call, 204-780-0893, 1-800-268-5483, or text us at 204-588-7355. John, Jody brought up a good question there about shareholders. What's your take on that?
Well, I think, WestJet's a private corporation, right? So their shares aren't publicly traded. It's owned by Onyx Corporation in Toronto, with now some foreign carriers like Delta and Air France and Korean also owning a piece of the WestJet equity pile. So, yeah, but they don't publish their results. So I don't really know. I don't even know what is WestJet in dire straits and they need to generate more cash in order to remain solvent? I don't think so. I think they're okay. They're just trying to get more. So they're just trying to increase the return on investment for their shareholders by doing things that would increase the revenue pile without having to go through a lot of costs. But remember, these seats that they're going to get, this is not cheap to put these seats in there. They're spending a lot of money to put these seats in there. Somebody had to sign the check to buy these seats and put them on an airplane, and there has to be a financial consideration when you get approval to do that. So somebody's done the math someplace, somewhere within the WestJet organization to say this is a good financial decision to do this. But the only way this is going to work financially is to increase the seat price for those seats that are going to be that have a recline, and hopefully the passengers who don't pay will be satisfied with a non-reclining seat for however long their trip is. So this is a gamble on the part of WestJet. It's a very expensive gamble, 43 airplanes. That's, a quarter of their fleet is going to get converted. So, it's a major gamble as far as WestJet's concerned. As far as I'm concerned, for WestJet, there's going to be a lot of unhappy passengers, as your caller just mentioned. I don't even know why we're thinking about this concept of a non-reclining seat. That's been part of our legacy. It's been part of our history for however long I've been flying. I'm just flabbergasted that they move in this direction, probably to copy EasyJet and Ryanair that have 220 passengers on their 737s. But I think that at a certain point in time, Canadians can express their displeasure about the extent to which WestJet is fragmenting its offering, and to eliminate more and more pieces of service from their flight. And the Canadian government does have a role to play in these types of initiatives. This is a federally regulated business, and once you start playing around with the service levels in a federally regulated business, there is the option for the federal government to intervene. And depending on the public uproar, this might just be the one.
It's coming up to 12:48 now, and we're asking you to weigh in what you think about WestJet charging a little bit more extra for you to recline your seat. Give us a call, 204-780-0893. You can also call us toll-free, 1-800-268-5483. And, of course, text us, 204-588-7355. We're speaking here with John Gradek, a lecturer in supply networks and aviation management at McGill University. John, so I want to ask you this. Does this set a precedent then when it comes to what Canadian airlines can do? As you mentioned, Canadians should say something. I mean, WestJet does this. Do the other airlines follow?
It's going to be an interesting game. That's been the traditional path that Canadian airlines have been trying. If this works, if this works for WestJet, and WestJet can fill those premium seats, as I call them, in the front of the airplane, where people are paying whatever that premium amount is for a reclining seat versus a non-reclining seat, it may be a signal to some of the other carriers to say, hey, this isn't so bad. WestJet didn't get too much of a bad rap when they did this, and they got more people on an airplane. Because what's going to happen is that back of the economy cabin, they're saying the seat won't recline. Well, what does that mean in terms of the density of that section of the airplane? They will put one, maybe two more rows of seats in that aircraft to take into account that they don't have to worry about reclining seats taking up real estate. So they will dense up the airplane, and carriers would love it to get more people on an airplane.
Do you think that this creates a bit of a two-tier system or a tiered system when it comes to airline travel for passengers, do you think, John?
Well, we're already there. I think that, we've been nickel and diming the service level and the configuration of our economy cabins over the last few years. We've tried, airplanes with, 5 seats abreast. Then we'll go to 6 seats abreast to dense up the airplane. We're Canadians, typically will accept things that make sense and that doesn't really impact their level of comfort on an airplane. At a certain point in time, you kind of run out of options as an airline to kind of create something new, and they have to now start to get into this seat mechanism and reclining mechanism in order for them to still be able to differentiate themselves from the competition and to allow the carrier to charge premium fares for a mechanism that was already installed in your seat throughout the airplane. And that to me gets a little bit nasty in terms of what you're trying to do.
I want to invite our caller now, Lois, who joins us on the line with a comment. Hi, Lois.
Hi.
Hi, what's your comment?
My comment is that you're discussing this as primarily an issue of comfort, but it goes far beyond that. This is a health and safety issue. There are many people flying who have back problems and who cannot sit and then be able to move safely for more than 15 minutes or a half hour. when they try to get out of their seats, it takes several movements, several steps to be able to be loose enough to move in any comfort whatsoever. And if there's something that happens on the plane that requires people to move quickly, not having been able to be comfortable or to move their seat for more than an hour at a time will cause problems not only for the person themselves, but for everyone else on the flight who's trying to move quickly.
Thank you so much, Lois, for your point there. Very good point, Lois. As we heard there, John, Lois made a very good point. This is also about health and safety.
Yeah, it is, and I think and I have to speak from personal experience. I've had some T-band issues in my leg over the last couple of months, and it's very difficult and very time-consuming for me to get up off a seat and become fully mobile and get everything stretched so I can run off an airplane in the case of an emergency. Hasn't happened. Hope it never happens. But I agree that there ought to be a review. The problem is Ryanair and EasyJet have been doing this for decades. So if anybody's gone through this exercise of health and safety and gone through the regulatory review, both EasyJet and Ryanair have done that with the European Union. So I'm not sure that is something that will prevent WestJet from doing it. But it is a consideration. Somehow, some way, we're going to have to deal with it. But, it's already been done. This is not something new. They're not reinventing something. They're just taking stuff that's already been in place in the aviation industry.
I want to read a text now, an anonymous text that we just received from someone. Their comment says this: regarding all my previous 5-hour flights to Mexico for several years, seats recline no more than a few degrees. Quite useless. That angle is already much worse than being upright and causes me back pain. Most people have figured it out, and many don't even bother to recline that tiny bit. Another issue, trying to climb over someone to get to the washroom when the space is so narrow. There's almost no room. I'm not impressed. WestJet is decreasing service. What do you take from that comment there, John? Someone talking about not being able to move around and also having issues there with not being able to recline that seat.
Yeah, like as I mentioned, along with that non-reclining seat, they're going to reduce the space between the seats, and so you won't have to, in fact, bother somebody in front of you to move the seat up so that you can get out and go use the washroom. If you're sitting on the window seat and you've got two other passengers beside you, between you and the aisle, the odds are those two people are going to have to move into the aisle and get out of their seat in order for you to be able to get to the washroom on that airplane. So it is going to be a very different cabin environment. And it's going to, if I was flying, I'd be making sure I get the aisle seat, forget the window seat. The aisle seat, I need to be able to get to the washroom a couple of times on a 5-hour flight, and I'd rather do it from an aisle rather than from a window.
We're speaking with John Gradek here, a lecturer in supply networks and aviation management at McGill University. We're asking you what you think of WestJet possibly looking at charging you a little bit more to have that seat fully reclined on your next flight. Give us a call, 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. Toll free, 1-800-268-5483. 1-800-268-5483 or text us at 204-588-7355, 204-588-7355. We just have about a couple minutes left here, and we have a phone call that's actually coming in. I think our listener is ready to go, so we'll just let Dylan take care of that, and then we're going to get to that. What is left for passengers then, John? Because, a lot of people are talking about you got to pay extra to check that bag. You don't have those meals like you used to have, and now you're paying, possibly to get that extra comfort or be able to recline that seat for yourself on the flight. What's left for passengers?
Oh, I can think of a number of things. We can talk about the seat cushions, and then, give you a choice of seat cushions and the thickness of seat cushions. And you want a cardboard seat, or do you want a cushion seat? You want a cardboard seat? No problem, no charge. You want a cushion seat? An extra $10. So the imagination of airline marketers is bottomless. So they're going to try to do every single thing that they can to kind of differentiate themselves in the marketplace. So, yeah, seat cushions. You may want to talk about, using the lighting system, or using the air conditioning system, or that little thing that look at directing air in your seat, and seat back entertainment. If you're only gonna get, heaven forbid, the CBC on your TV set. But if you want to have another network, another streaming network, I need your credit card to be able to get that on the airplane. So there's a whole bunch of things that could happen
Quickly,
in terms of where.
Quickly,
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead,
John,
sir.
I want to get to Kathleen, who's been waiting patiently on the line,
Okay.
and I'll give you the final word here. Kathleen, what's your comment?
Hi. I might be a little bit of an odd man out here, although I do hear everybody and everything that everyone's saying. But I agree that I don't know why we're really talking about this, but not for the reasons that other people have cited. I never use this function at all. I've flown several times this year, and I would never use it. I actually consider it to be both inconvenient and inconsiderate. That's why I don't do it. When somebody's seat is down in front of me and I'm in the window seat and I try to get into the aisle, like if I'm somebody that had to move and had to get up and move myself around a little bit, I would find it difficult to do that if all the seats are reclined in front of me. So I find it to be not something that I use personally myself ever. I think of it as inconsiderate, and I think of it as inconvenient for me when I'm trying to get in and out of my seat. So it doesn't bother me at all, and I wonder if the WestJet people actually find that a lot of people like me are not using this function, and maybe it's not really as big of a deal, although it is obviously a very big deal to quite a few of your callers.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. We have 30 seconds left here. So, John, I'm going to give you the final word, your thoughts on the conversation we've had here today.
Yeah, I think, Canadians are, love to recline. I don't think, notwithstanding your last caller, I think that people want that option. If they need it, it's there. It's been used. It's been there for decades. Why take it away? And I think that's from an economy passenger perspective, that there was no burning platform that required WestJet to make these seats non-reclinable. And I think they're going to have to come back and look at it very shortly.
Thank you so much, John. We're going to have to leave it there. John Gradek at McGill University is our guest today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone who called in today. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow here on Radio Noon.